Hey y'all, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. It's coming up on Thanksgiving, and I'm obviously not going to be filming tomorrow because Thanksgiving is only one of really two holidays we ever celebrate, that and 4th of July, so ain't no way I'm filming on Thanksgiving. But it's Thanksgiving Eve. Beautiful t-shirt weather, 60 degrees, no complaints. This is a day the Lord hath made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I'm glad you're checking it out today. All right, today's going to be something really cool. We're going to show you not only the distinctions between of pruning, but this way, up and down this driveway, is an orchard. This way is a food forest. Now, if you were standing here, boots on the ground right now, because you're seeing this in basically a two-dimensional kind of thing, you would see the distinct difference between them. Between each one of these over here, there is more specific pruning, okay? It's shaped. I'm doing certain things up here, or at least I'm gonna do certain things up here that I won't do down here. Now, the difference between the food forest and an orchard is that the orchard requires more maintenance, okay? I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna prune things, I'm gonna do this and that, and I'm gonna add, it's gonna get certain level of care that we don't necessarily care about when it comes to a food forest. Now, really, one of the biggest things for me to overcome, even in the food forest that we've done before, is I love to prune. I'll be honest with you, I absolutely love to prune. And the reason why, well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, how many examples of pruning do you see in the Bible? There's a whole lot, okay? Maybe good and bad if you stop to think about it. But what I love about pruning is that I have a little more control. Now, this is more of that Francis Bacon thing in our Western culture that pops up into my brain all the time, and I feel like I got to intervene, when realistically, I don't. If I were to let them grow up, they're still going to do what they got to do as long as I give them the right environment, okay? But in a food forest, I'm kind of pulling myself out of it. Now, as we kind of gravitate over here, you know, we got a, like right here, here's a black locust. It's a little bit out of whack. Do I want to mess with it? Because if this were in a regular orchard, I would go ahead and trim all this up, and I would really only want one central leader out of here. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 popping up here. Is that something I'm even concerned about? In an orchard, in a permaculture orchard setting, I would be concerned, because my productive tree would be about where I'm standing right now, maybe a little bit, maybe about that far away. But the point being is it's going to create so many obstructions in there when it's growing and it's doing its thing that I can't even get in here, okay? So that's not something in a food forest I'm even gonna worry about. Now over here, we got this apple tree, and I'm invariably gonna step on some things I don't wanna step on. Remember, we're trying to get all 7 layers of a forest, whether it's in the orchard or whether it's in a food forest. Our ground cover, as you can see, maybe to some extent around here, we got that covered over here. And we're just gonna let it grow wild. You know why? Because it is a food forest. I guess I should tell you what that is. Those are basically strawberries. And in this area, in fact, everywhere on this property, they've turned out to be quite invasive. Wonderful problem to have. How cool is it when you have productive parts of your orchard and food forest that are absolutely invasive? That's what I want, and that's what you should want too, I think. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna break it down from here. That way is an orchard. From here, this way is a food forest. And I'm going to show you the differences, several differences in what we ignore and what we concern ourselves with when pruning in a food forest. All right, a pair of loppers and a really sharp blade, those are the tools of the pruning man's trade. Yeah, play on a little army cadence there. But that's really all I need today is this. And I got this little thing that sticks in my pocket like so. There you go, like a switchblade, kinda. I can stick all this stuff in my pockets, and these you might need on some of the smaller trees. That's really all I need. In fact, very invariably, somebody's gonna ask, well, why don't you use a Sawzall? Well, there's a reason for that. Number one, whenever I teach anything, whether it's butchery, I always do everything with hand tools. Everything. Not to say that at times I don't use battery operated stuff, but these are low barriers to entry to everything. Like I said, whether it's, people can usually find a knife. They can find a bone saw when we do butchery. people can normally get their hands on this. Maybe you don't have it, but maybe your neighbors do. Well, Sawzalls are probably going to run you at least $100 for a halfway decent one, and you're going to have to buy batteries. You're going to have to do all that stuff. But if I could teach it this way, it's translatable no matter who's doing it. So if you want to go with a Sawzall, knock yourself out. But be warned that if you don't have a deft hand on some of this stuff, you'll wind up girdling the bark if you're not paying really good attention, or you get too careless. That's why I prefer to do this stuff by hand, is because I sit here and I look at it and I'm thinking, okay, when I'm doing real pruning, at least in an orchard setting, I'm looking at this tree about how I want it to look. I'm using my mind's eye. You will find yourself, I guarantee it because I do it and I've done it, is I get too in a rush, find myself in a roll and I stop using this. And I'm sitting here chopping off stuff like on a peach up there. Man, I'm still kicking myself over that. I chopped off a branch that was absolutely going to produce big. And because I wasn't paying attention, because I was using a Sawzall, sat there, cut that thing. But trust me, when you're doing it by hand, you're thinking about every cut you got to do because you're spending energy to do it. All right, with that said, let's get on over here. I discussed it briefly a little moment ago, how this, I would basically cut everything out of this black locust except for that one right there in an orchard setting. I'm in a food forest setting. I don't care. Plus, as this thing grows, along with some of the others I got around here, remember, there's also a preparedness component to this. I got a main road down here. Do I necessarily want everybody and their great-grandmother knowing I got a food forest over here? Probably not in the coming days. So it probably makes sense along the outside edge where people could see, maybe put some of my nitrogen fixtures out there so it's not such an easy thing to see. In fact, that was one thing covered by a couple of people, a couple of students I had a little while ago in their own. Now, here we go. We come up across a black locust, okay? Now, in a case of something like this where it's not as big a deal if I cut it wrong, I can use a Sawzall. But that's one more thing I got to carry. Everything I need is on me right now. So I'm going to ask myself, I got a lane. Just like when we prune in a food forest, I want to demonstrate this. When we prune in a food forest and in an orchard, this is the one thing that both of them are going to be the same. When I prune that tree, we got our aisles going this way in this particular case, and we got our lanes going this way. Doesn't have to be aisles and lanes, but mine does, okay? So what don't I want? I got a tree right over here. I got a pear tree. Over here, I got this black locust. I can't have obstructions between the two, so I can't even get up down here to get my strawberries, blueberries, and all the other ground cover I got going around here, and the shrubs. So I want my tree, no matter the place, whether it's an orchard or food forest, I want it to look like an X-wing fighter. It's not going to go this way. It's not going to go that way. I don't want the obstructions. I'm going to have it go this way and that way. You dig? That's exactly what I want. So with that said, I can already see I got problem children here. This black locust is very, very robust, goes way higher, it's higher than anything. But I only want one central leader in it, meaning I just want one of them shooting, one major one shooting for the top. And the one that's going up there right now is this one right here that I'm shaking. I don't want that for two reasons. Number one is producing things that are going to be in the lane right here. I can't have it. So I'm going to basically take that whole thing out. Now, typically you don't want to prune more than 1/3 of a tree in a year. Now, looking at what I see here, this is all I'm taking off, okay? So with that said, let me grab a hold of these gloves because it is a black locust and I'm trying not to get impaled on it. This here is the one I want to take out. I'd love to take out this one too, but like I said, that'd be more than 1/3. Uh-oh, can't get out. Oh, can I? It's cool if I can do this, but I'm not so sure. And then in this particular case, I'm gonna kind of grab a hold of this thing. There we go. Now, here's the problem I'm running into out here. Look at this. That's about 1/3 of that whole tree, but that was gonna be a problem, child. I'm gonna lay it down alongside here and remove it. Here's the problem when you deal with a black locust in a setting like this. Like I said, taking all that nitrogen, that atmospheric nitrogen, putting it down into the soil for the benefit of all my productive trees. But it's a double-edged sword. If I had something over here like I got over here, like a false indigo, I could take that and I could cut it off, chop it in place. The reason I can't is because it is a black locust. Has a lot of wonderful virtues, best thing to put in the fireplace, but the problem is, if I chop that up, it's gonna be here 10 years from now. I can't have that because black locust is very resistant to rot. Now, all I'm gonna do, if you kind of look down here, I got a major problem child taken out. I got a third of this tree gone, okay? So all I'm gonna do at this point is clear up what little else is growing in that lane. So these little ones really don't account more than a third, and I'm getting up close to the healing collar. Not that it even matters with a black locust. No matter, I could cut this thing plumb down to here, and it ain't gonna care, it's coming back. All right, black locust is squared away, now I got a walking path. How cool is that? All right, so here we go. So how do we prune these trees? This here is a LeConte pear, and this is the hardest thing I got a problem with, is because this tree is structured so poorly, and I'll tell you the reasons why. I got to make sure. Now, I'm going to be stepping on strawberries. I mean, this is a really good problem to have. These strawberries are everywhere. I don't want to be stepping on this rosemary. Now, right off the bat, every time I'm doing, all these guards are coming off because frankly, they're not even needed. We put bone sauce on all this stuff, and frankly, we haven't had any rabbit problems over here, so why even fool with it? So it's coming off, but the problem I got is some of these have actually grown up through there. Remember, I want that tree pruned like this and this. We'll cover more specific pruning. We've done it in one of our previous videos, but we'll talk about how to do it in an orchard. But here's what I'm concerned about. Number one, the third rule doesn't necessarily, well, it doesn't apply to things like black locust. Like I said, I could take that plumb down to the stump, but it definitely applies to your fruit trees. So here's all I'm concerned with. Even though I have a tree, not a fruit tree, meaning that it's laden, I'm just gonna have to put up with it because it's a food forest, okay? And I'm making myself, you can prune a food forest, but that's part of it. The virtue of being a food forest is that you don't have to fool with it. So all these things that are shooting up like this, that are below typically 42 inches, I usually wanna get rid of. But I am gonna get rid of these at the bottom, and I'm gonna stay on the other side of the healing collar. I'm gonna get that out. And just like I told you before, with a black locust, I couldn't do this. I could take my loppers, even put it just like so. Guess what? Fungal, yeah. Mushrooms are gonna love that. Mushrooms are the teeth of the forest. Over here, I got a blueberry. I don't want it messed with. So all these things that are showing all this competition that might get in the way of my blueberry, you've got to go to, okay? This one over here. You got to go. Now, a lot of times I want to forewarn you that what I normally do, I'm only doing it for the demonstration of this video, is normally I'll pile everything up right next to the tree. So I never make the awful mistake of taking more of that tree than I should. Now, I've got myself in a rush also with a sawzall. Found myself tearing this thing up, and you wind up regretting it. As a little side note, like I said, we got the blueberry over here. Got our comfrey right there, and like I said, the people that are ordering comfrey and stuff, it will die back like this. Don't worry, spring rolls around, it's coming, nephew. So this, we don't need anymore. Now, at this point, if this were a regular orchard, everything from about 42 inches all the way down, I'd get rid of. But, once again, this is a food forest. I'm not that concerned about it. But what I am concerned about, you see this branch right here? Well, where is it? Here's my aisle, and it's right dead in the way. And if I let it go, I want you to get in close so you can see where I'm cutting this thing. Right there is your healing collar, okay? I'm gonna be on this side of it as close as I can be. Bam, there you go. Okay, this one over here, it's gonna be in that aisle over there. There's an aisle going this way. See that? You got to go too. So, there we go. And had this been a regular orchard, I'd be doing a much heavier prune on it. This I'm not crazy about. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and take it out because you don't have to stick to the rules hard and fast. I don't like this branch because it's going straight to the top. It's giving competition to the central leader. You see that one at the top there? This ain't it. But I'm gonna take it out because I only want one leader in this. Here we go. And that is all I need to take off of this tree. And I'm just gonna pile it up here. And nature is gonna break this down for me. Bam, that's what I'm talking about. So this is pruned. I could even take this out and this out as well. This one over here, okay, this is what's really bothering me, because any branch that is 50% or greater attached to that trunk needs to go right here. In an orchard setting, that would normally have to go, and I'm telling you, I'm pulling my hair out because I want to take it off so bad, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let myself do it. I'm going to let this thing grow up natural, but I will go ahead and take these two, and I'm going to make myself suck it up, which is what I don't want to do. All right, so that's all we're doing in terms of pruning in the food forest. Well, we got one right here. It's something of a problem child. I'm not going to mess with it because it's okay, because as this tree grows, this is going to grow as well. I'm not worried, even though it's in this aisle, I'm going to let it go a little bit longer, and I'm going to see if it's going to grow above my head. Now, all these other things that I see going out here, everything competing for the top, ordinarily in an orchard, I would not dig that. Also, I'd be training these branches, not in all orchards, but in some cases, I will train these branches like you see right now to do what's called a espalier. And that's a whole nother method altogether, but stay tuned for those videos, or you can go back and watch some of the others. Things like this that come off the bottom, they're going to be shaded out. They're not going to be very productive. In an orchard setting, I would take that off. Things that are growing to the center, I would take that off. Things that are within 6 inches of the trunk, like this here, ordinarily, I would take that off. Those are things I am forcing myself. Y'all pray for me, because I am going to have nightmares about not doing this. This is the first time in a food forest where I made myself not do it. I'm going to let it grow natural, okay? All right, look at this one. Alrighty. Well, as you can see, it looks like a nightmare, and I'm going to have to deal with it. No, I'm not. Here's all I'm going to do. This is a plum, okay? And as you can see, everything about this thing looks awful. But I'm going to let it go. Because it's not just a matter of what we're doing. I mean, we're a real-life working farm, but we also do a lot of R&D out here, okay? I know exactly what I should do to put this plum in full. If it were in an orchard setting, totally different. The only thing I'm going to take off of this thing, even though it is structured as bad as you can possibly imagine, the only thing that's coming off this thing, and I'm going to have to make myself be okay with it, is this here. Because as you can see, it's not coming out of the rootstock. It's not anything like that. We basically got these shoots coming up right through the cage that we were using that we no longer need. Okay, and just like all the others, if it's not a black locust, I'm just going to chop it up right here and Jimmy crack corn, and I don't care. Jimmy could have smoked crack, and I care still. But anyway, don't smoke crack, Jimmy. See the point there? Anyway, all I'm going to do is get this off of here, but I got to remove.
He's just going to join your cabinet.
What? Oh, shoot. No, son, we got to get those people out of there. We got to get those people out of there. So, Jimmy, no place in the cabinet for you. All right, so the problem we got right now is, to a certain extent, this is grown into those pieces over there. That's not why we're here. I'll get this off later, but that's really not why we're here. This thing is as structured as poorly as anybody could ever hope for. This requires a lot of TLC in an orchard setting. But here's the beauty of a food forest. I don't care. In fact, if you have tactical reasons for having a food forest, and I know a lot of folks that do you really want this thing pruned up? Because pruned up trees are kind of a calling card to anybody that comes by. This here looks like it's some junk tree sticking out in the woods somewhere. Maybe that's a virtue in these times. Maybe it's a virtue of your farm. I'm going to call it a virtue, even though it's driving me nuts. I'm going to go with it. But that's the beauty about having a food forest, is that for those of you that have thought, I don't think I want to mess with the maintenance of that. I don't want to do this. Now, it does require maintenance when it's off and running. But a food forest gets to the point, if done correctly, where it's basically running on its own. It might require periodic maintenance, but nowhere near as much as a orchard. I still prefer orchards because I love the maintenance that I'm doing. I'm not going in here begrudgingly doing any of this. I am doing what I love. I think I'm doing what the good Lord put me here to do. And I love every moment of it. So I don't mind pruning. But for tactical reasons, I'm going to leave this wild. And for experimental reasons, for R&D reasons, I'm going to leave it wild. We're just going to see how well this sucker does without my intervention, without me doing anything more than adding more species around here. We got a little we got rosemary, thyme, and oregano around every tree. We got yarrow coming up all through here. We got strawberries that are absolutely invasive all the way around here. Got a blueberry over there that you can't see. Got another one back here that you can't see. We got nitrogen fixing shrubs all the way around here. All right, let me get this off here and we'll come to the end of it. Isn't that cool, y'all? Look at that, a sea of strawberries. And we're gonna replicate it everywhere. How cool is it when you can come down to a food forest, you're gonna need to put in maintenance. Don't think for a moment that it's gonna just remove you completely from the equation, especially at first. But how cool is it when you can literally walk out here, pick 60 gallons of strawberries out here, get your blueberries. Even now that I've cleared these aisles, until this becomes mature, I can do something of a syntropic design out here, or an alley cropping thing where I'm growing my vegetables in between the rows until it goes. If you didn't have strawberries or anything like that, think about the possibilities of all the wonderful things you could have. Also in these times, ask yourself, which makes more sense for me in these times? Is it an orchard? Do I have the time to devote for maintenance and care of an orchard? Or does a food forest more fit into my design, or the design of my life, the availability that I have for time? Those are things you ought to be asking yourself. Also asking yourself, hey, do I want a clandestine source of food? I think everybody should and want. I mean, that's up to you at the end of the day. But honestly, there are distinct differences between pruning an orchard and pruning a food forest. Basically, I got a couple more things to do, and that's a wrap. Whereas the orchard is probably going to take me 3 or 4 days to get that done. So ask yourself at the end of the day, which one works better for you? It could be a combination of both, all right? So if you need any of the bone sauce we talked about, need the comfrey, you can still plant that if you can work the ground. If you need anything from us, need that butchery course we talked about earlier, any of that stuff, check us out at the website. Check out the description box down below. EMP shield, you name it. Solar oven, we got it all. All right, y'all, till next time. Hopefully this video was a blessing to you. This is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. We'll see y'all next time.